Aladdin, made by Guy Ritchie, out in cinemas now. It's the live remake of the classic animated Disney film from 1992. Now, before I begin, I want to say a couple of words about the idea of remakes themselves, as it is currently realized in Hollywood, because that idea is idiotic to me. I think that most of these movies are just simple cash grabs jumping at the opportunity to use a known property and a known story to get people to the movie theater. What I personally would like to see is remakes of movies that were not successful the first time around. You know, there are countless films which had the potential to be great, or at least some interesting elements about them that didn't work out for one reason or another. And maybe giving them another go would be cool. As it stands though, the big studios are remaking the adored classics, which is a difficult task in itself because you usually have big shoes to fill right off the bat. When I go to see a remake of an existing film, it's difficult for me to keep a completely open and fresh mind when I'm reviewing it. Like it or not, I will compare it to the original, especially the things that were so great about it. So let's get into the film now. The story follows the original quite closely. Aladdin is a small-time thief living on the streets of Agrabah, dreaming of a better life. Princess Jasmine is supposed to marry a prince as her father is getting older and he's pushing her to ensure the line of succession for the throne. But Jasmine herself is not really interested in any of the candidates. And then there's also Jafar, the royal vizier, who is plotting to take the throne for himself. And we get to the elephant in the room, which is the lamp, and the genie that lives in the lamp and can make your wishes come true. Now, in the original, the genie was played by Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams, who gave possibly one of the best performances in the history of Western animation, at least in my opinion. And I'm not just saying vocal performance, although that was the main thing about it, but also because the filmmakers to some degree recorded his movements and facial expressions in the booth and then animated the genie character around the actor. And the result was a character that elevated the entire film. I mean, he was the best part about it. So, big shoes to fill, as I was saying. And in the remake, this role was given to Will Smith, who is known for playing wonderful characters such as Soldier Will Smith, Special Agent Will Smith, Mercenary Will Smith, Superhero Will Smith. You can kind of see where I'm going with it. Will Smith usually just plays Will Smith in different circumstances. So to put him up against this titanic performance by Williams, the performance with so much flair and humor and charisma, well, the big question was, is it just going to be a blue Will Smith? And it kind of is. I mean, what can I say about it? It's literally just Will Smith painted blue occasionally, doing Will Smith stuff. And as expected, he is not in the same league, not even in the same sport as Robin Williams was. However, after the trailers, I was entirely convinced, I admit. I expected the genie to be complete dogshit, and it really isn't. Smith is, I think, serviceable, and he does a fine job, and he's occasionally even funny, but that's just the problem to me. He's playing a character that can steal the entire show, and he's just sort of there, you know, nothing too exciting. Surprisingly enough, he's not even the worst of the main characters in terms of casting, because that honor goes to Jafar. In the original, that was one bad motherfucker. I mean, everything about him said evil sorcerer. He was sinister and menacing. And the new guy, Marwan Kenzari, he's like melted ice cream. I mean, this guy is annoying and whiny and everything but menacing. And when he has his big scenes, you know, he doesn't look and sound like a person that is taking over an entire country right now. He looks and sounds like somebody who got their order mixed up at Starbucks. Unfortunately, this is far from being all of the movie's problems. There were changes made to the script itself, even just the runtime went up from 90 minutes to 130, and that's a lot of material. That's 40 minutes of extra film, and you can feel it. Unfortunately, the movie just drags at times, and it's longer than it has any right to be. There are also changes to the characters. Aladdin is much more of an asshole in this version, which makes it harder to sympathize with him. Also, in the animated version, he had this sort of inner confidence and charisma, even if he was faking it at times. But this guy is more shy and awkward and lacks the same charm. Princess Jasmine has a whole new thing going on for her, which just feels like a forced #MeToo subplot. In the original, she was already a strong female character. Yes, she was placed in circumstances which were kind of shitty for her, but she took agency. She made her own decisions. She was snarky about them, and she acted on those decisions. She was her own person, and she was also quite smart. And if that was, as if that wasn't enough, this version of Jasmine has some weird love for her poor citizens and dreams about making life better for them, although how specifically is never explained. She also wants to become a female sultan herself and rule over Agrabah without necessarily a husband, which, fine sentiment, but did we really need it here? And since we never actually see any of the additional qualities that would make me think that yes, she would actually be a really good ruler, better than her father, I think tacking it on just by saying, oh, I want to rule, it just makes her character a disservice. It makes her worse than she was. Then there's Jafar again, who has this additional subplot going on for himself about wanting to wage war on a specific another country, which is mentioned like twice and then never explained further and never leading to anything at all. And then there's also the prince. There's some other European prince hanging around the palace wanting to marry Jasmine. And he's there for like 2 scenes. And in the first one you think, okay, comic relief, that's fine, that's quite funny. Also this scene gives us some more information about Jasmine. And then he shows up again and you're thinking, okay, maybe there'll be more to this guy, maybe he will play a role in this, he will have some impact on the story. And then he never shows up again. Ever. And then on top of that, the whole movie just feels like weirdly artificial, almost plastic. Like you have all those beautiful sets and costumes, and very often nothing visually interesting happens. There are 3 songs in the film, I counted them, where a character just walks through a room singing. Nothing else, no dancing, no background stuff, no action, no animation about it. And that feels rough when you remember the original, which had so many lively moments, especially during songs, which songs, by the way, are still pretty much very good. But it also hurts because Guy Ritchie is the director of this film, and if you remember films like Snatch and Rock'n'Rolla and Lock, Stock, I mean, those were frenetic, energetic movies. What happened? What happened, Guy? Now, I know I'm ragging on this film too much, and it probably gives you this impression that it's complete and utter garbage, but there are actually some pretty good elements to it. As I mentioned, the songs, you've got Naomi Scott, who plays Jasmine. She is a wonderful and charismatic actress, and I felt that she stole every scene she was in. She's definitely the heart and soul of the movie. And as I mentioned, the sets and costumes are great, and a few of the scenes, although not that many unfortunately, do have that flair and life about them. There is some great humor in here at times, in particular the shenanigans between the Genie and Jasmine's handmaiden, which is a cool little subplot. And the scene where Aladdin is pretending to be a prince for the first time and he meets Jasmine and he's trying to impress her. This is like really funny stuff there. But what I'm getting at is that it isn't a terrible film, but perhaps because it has those few great elements about it, it hurts even more that overall it just feels so mediocre, uninspired, pedestrian even, ordinary. You don't walk out of the theater completely unhappy and disappointed by it, but you're also not really impressed. And I guess this is the main takeaway from this rant of mine. Why would you want to go see a mediocre version of Aladdin when you can go back and see the really good one?